And Tamara Abdul Hadi is a photographer from Iraq who now lives in Canada. So what time is it now at your place, Tamara?
It's 6:20.
I think you can benefit from our delay.
Yes, exactly.
And Tamara, your work is concerned with the historic and contemporary representation of Iraqi culture and in its diversity. And you will show us photographs that you made over the last years in Mesopotamian wetlands, Al-Akhbar, reporting from the contemporary life of Marsh Arabs.
And just one word from me. Tamara was the first speaker that I contacted for our event, and she immediately responded very positively, and that gave me a kick to further explore this idea. So thank you very much for accepting the invitation.
Thank you, Victor, for the invitation, and thank you to everyone for being here. So what I will do is I will present images that I've taken myself, but I'll also present archival images that I've recently been crowdsourcing. I will preface the talk saying that as an Iraqi who was born outside of Iraq and lived in the diaspora for most of my life, I was always very fascinated and interested in the books that my parents had in their library at home, and the stories that they told me about Iraq, and specifically one book really, I would say two books really affected me as a youth, and I believe probably pushed me to becoming a photographer without really noticing, which were a book called Iraq by a photographer and graphic designer called Nazem Ramzi, and a book called Return to the Marshes by Young and Wheeler. And this book specifically, Return to the Marshes, really built my young imagination of Iraq and the marshes specifically, and this land that I had heard of from my family, but I had never gotten a chance to visit. And I ended up visiting in the first time in 2018, and was able to document and photograph it myself. And after doing that, realizing that I hadn't seen a lot of archival images of the marshes other than the ones that you can find on the internet, like a lot of the ones from the Wheeler, Nick Wheeler and Gavin Young book, and also and the Wilfred Thesiger images. And so I made it a point to sort of open up this or crowdsource images from Iraqis that had taken images of the marshes in that time. And so what I'm going to share today, and for that I'm doing a further project with the images, but for now I'm going to share some of the archival images that I've sourced from Iraqis in Iraq and the diaspora, taken specifically around that time when Young and Wheeler were there. I believe it was 1979 or 1977 actually. So I start here just with the image that I took, that you used for the Facebook page, just as an intro before I go into the archived images of the Ahwar from Iraqis in Iraq and the diaspora. And these images were taken between 1965 and 1978. And they're from sourced from different people that had gone for different reasons, people that had lived close by, people that had traveled from Baghdad as sort of internal tourism, people like my father who was studying architecture at the University of Baghdad, and they would take them on field trips to see the wonderful, architecture of the marshes and the reed houses. And so there are specific I'm not 100% sure yet. It's still a work in progress in terms of these archival images of where they were taken exactly. But I have been having conversations with the people that crowdsourced them to me through the internet, and people that I don't know who sent me their, grandfather's images and their father's images and their parents' images, and then their own. And I think that a lot of times, a lot of the images that we do see from the marshes are images of the land itself and the reed houses. Not a lot of the people specifically, the people of the marshes, the Ma'dan, the Marsh Arabs. And that was one of the things that I wanted to do when I photographed it, was to get closer to the people.
Ask you some questions during the presentation. These houses, they are built on the islands which float. They are made of reed, right?
Yes. So the islands here, you can see this wider image is exactly. So I wasn't going to go into too much detail of the history because we had a bit of it from Hans, and then we have Azzam, Alwash, and Salman coming up with a lot of the important historical and present information. But yes, so the people, the Marsh Arabs or the Ma'dan live in this on this land. They live off fishing, harvesting reeds, and the water buffalo. And what's really beautiful about the way that they live is, in a sense, self-sustainable. And one thing that I really loved and noticed about it was how amazing the women were, and I will go into that with my own images. So these that I just showed are images from Iraqis in Iraq and the diaspora. And as a side note, something really amazing happened in the past couple of days, where Victor, after you gave a talk about this World Wetland Day on the Polish radio, I was brought into contact with a person who had been to the marshes from Poland, who had been to the marshes in 1978, called Grzegorz Walnik, who shared with me his images that he took in 1978 when he was 12 years old. Yeah, and so I'd been in touch with him in the past, I would say one day, really. Like, he got in touch with me yesterday on Twitter, and shared with me these images that he took when he was 12, which is so amazing. And he had been to the marshes with his parents, who were, I believe, working in Kuwait at the time. And so I really wanted to share these images and kind of bring this connection that I made yesterday through you, actually. And to see this land and its people visualized and represented through a young Polish man. And this boat too. It's the double boat, which in the older images of the marshes, they only exist because these boats don't exist anymore. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Azzam and Salman, but I believe this was more more of a tourist boat, right? So it's this idea of having this larger boat because there was more tourism in the area, I guess.
They're actually for transportation in major canals and rivers. They are not used on the inside of the marshes. I suspect that these pictures are taken on the Euphrates main canal, probably closer to Chubayish. They're mostly for deep canals only.
Oh, okay.
They're basically and they're motorboats. You can see the stack, and it's basically Perkins old English engines, and they basically cut the time of transport between Qurna and Chibayish by quite a lot. So, major river canal.
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you, Azam. Then
Thank you
it's
so
time
much.
to introduce you already. This is Azam Alwash, our next speaker.
So this is a reed house made purely of reeds. This is something that is, this in the 4th and 3rd millennium BCE, Sumerians built their houses from reeds native to the marshlands, and they still practice this today. So this is also something that's very unique to the Iraqi marshes. And also, I believe that the images that we see here, and also the ones that we see from the book, The Return to the Marshes, the Nick Wheeler images, you can see a lot of floating islands, like a lot of numbers. And I believe that with the draining and the destruction of the marshes, there's a really much smaller percentage now of this kind of housing. This is the image of the photographer I just wanted to end it with him and thank him for sharing the images with me. Okay, so we go from that to the destruction of the marshes. These next slides were given to me by our next speaker, Azam Alwash, and it basically shows you the marshes in 72, 1990, and 1997. You can see how they're slowly being drained.
These are false color pictures. Red is green. They basically take the blue out, and red represents actually green, and the black is where water used to be.
So when the marshes have been drained in different timings by different people, but most recently, more recently to now, in the 80s and the 90s, Saddam Hussein further drained them and poisoned the lands as a way to prevent domestic rebels from seeking sanctuary there, and as a punishment for anti-government activities. And that was one of the main reasons that I think, like, one of the last major drainage for the land. And as you can see here by these images supplied to me by Azam, they are dry, which is such a stark difference to the images that we were just looking at earlier. And Azam, these images are which year?
That's June of 2003.
Okay.
This looks terrifying.
This is a picture of the first people that moved back to the marsh to the Chibai area. This is June 18, 2003.
And it's really difficult to see these images, especially as having been to the place and seen it the way that it is now, or seeing the older images of it in the 60s and 70s. Okay, so then we get to me when I took images in the Ahwar, and this was for me something very very special for me as an Iraqi that lived in the diaspora, as a photographer who has been documenting and photographing really the whole Middle East region, and had not even touched Iraq for much of my career, for many different reasons, but also because it's where my family's from, and it just I wanted to go there at the time when I was ready. And so my trip there and my experience there was a very wonderful experience, filled with really wonderful people and very strong women, which was really inspiring to me to see. And I really wanted to get to know the people I was photographing. This is Muna. She's 12 years old. Here she is, doing her thing on her land near her home on a boat. This is Hamidiya. She's in her 50s. She was moving reeds. So the reeds are a very big part of the livelihood of the people of the marshes. This is Nihaya. This was at sunrise near her home in Aishan Gubba. Nihaya, who's around 10 years old, woke up at sunrise and, like a seasoned buffalo herder, started milking the buffaloes while her brothers helped her out, Huda, Ahmed, and Muqtada. So as you can see, I concentrated a lot on the people specifically. For me, this was a part of a way to get to know the place and a part of a way to just learn more about the people that live there. Because in my photography anyway, I'm someone who's very interested in portraiture and photographing the people in the spaces that I photograph. I also noticed very close relationships between people and their buffaloes, and that was also something that was inspiring to see. So fishing, like I mentioned, is one of the ways that the Ma'dan live and make their living from, fishing and selling the fish.
Madan is how the Marsh Arabs call themselves, right, in their language?
Yes, yes. Fishermen in the morning. There had been a big rain one of the days that I was there, so it was very, very wet, very muddy, and very, and there was a lot of people were, cleaning their homes from the outside. They were trying to make sure that the rain was, or that their homes withstood the rain, because a lot of their homes that they lived on are swollen. I believe this land here that we're looking at was a military road, I think. Yeah, right, a military road built by Saddam's regime to make easier access, right, to go inside. Yeah, and so these roads are used by a lot of the people. A lot of people have their homes on them and live around them. No. So this is one of the floating islands. This family was very wonderful, and they posed for an image for me, like sort of like the boys of the family. Or this was the grandfather with his grandchildren. A fisherman. That's it for me. From the selection that I shared of images with you, I thank you for watching, and I hope that this was my way to give you a little bit of a visual of my experience there, and a little bit of the archival visual imagery that we can see how it's been since the 70s or 60s, 70s, 2000s, and now.
Thank you very much. It's amazing to see it, also the changes, and we still don't understand fully the scale of these marshes, the scale of drainage, and the scale of the subsequent restoration. But this will come in the story by Azam. But I would like to share one comment with you, and that is a question from my daughter, actually. My daughter Janka, who is 7, and I have this book. It's Return to the Marshes, and we watched it with my daughter. I was browsing through the book with my daughter, and she told, "Hold on, Dad, this girl is too little to sail alone. Yeah, she should not be alone on the boat." And I thought, well, they probably learn how to swim and how to sail before they learn how to walk. And we were wondering, actually, how it is to live all your life and spend your childhood. You don't have you didn't do this, but you may have seen people, how they manage. They have this little island of their house, and they do all the communication by boats, right?
Yeah, because they get around by boat, and I mean, a young girl of 12, 12 is not too young, but it's also quite young. So a young girl of 12 moving, her boat with such a strength and confidence was something just so natural for her, But they grow up in a way where they handle things, they lift reeds, they move them from the marshes to the town. They do all kinds of things that we wouldn't usually think that young women or teenagers or even older women do, and they all do in all ages. Really, they do so much, and it's really inspiring.
So that's a connection between wetlands and feminism from ancient times already, perhaps. There is one more thing on this, on the same photo that I want to share. I don't know how visible it is on the screen, but on the photo on the black background, you can see an archaeological finding of a boat which is 5,000 years old. And on the photo, you see the contemporary boat, more or less contemporary. And it's exactly the same. And what I understood from this book is that really the Marsh Arabs from Mesopotamia is the oldest culture on Earth, probably, that has kept the same tradition, the same way of building houses, the same way of living, style of living. And perhaps even the same songs and spoken proverbs, whatever. And the only thing that that destroyed this culture largely was drainage, right?
And I wanted also to ask you a question, because Your photographs started with women models. So I was curious, was it your interest in women as models? But then we saw also men working as fishermen. And I wanted to ask you about the gender roles in this society.
You know, my photography in general, I tend to focus more on men, and it's just my my subject interest in photography. So when I was going to the marshes, I was thinking, I want to meet the woman. I want to concentrate on the woman. I want to get to know them because I had seen images, for example, like the ones that Victor showed in the book. And I said, I wonder if they're still like that. And they, you know, because that's how they are, you know, they are in the old images and the new ones, you will see that they work, they do a lot. And so I made a choice to meet as many and photograph as many of the women on all ages. But of course, then I couldn't ignore the men that were, you know, also all around and also doing their thing. But in my experience, at least in the, you know, semi-short time I was there, I felt that the women were definitely doing more, that they were more, you know, they were physically doing more. They would, you know, they spend their days working, they herd the buffaloes, they milk them, they collect, they sell reeds, and they have like 6 children to take care of at the same time. And this is and they do it all, you know, which is, there you go, they do it, it's amazing. And so that was very, you don't even have to look for that. You see it as soon as you're there because it's obvious and it's their way of life. And I'm guessing that that's how it used to be also back in the day. So
that's how it is in the Polish wetlands areas as well. I spent a lot of time in the marshes of the Biebrza and Narew valleys, and I see the same. I'm sorry. If not the women, the local villages would not manage.
yeah.
Thank you very much.